New direction for Toronto as a new mayor gets ready to take the reins at City Hall.
Also, former candidates, I want us to work together.
Olivia Chow's plea to bring people together and the opposition she faces. We have extensive coverage of the mayor-elect's first day after winning power.
I'll buy a home.
$70 million, I'll give some to my family.
Plus 70 million reasons to check your pockets. We'll tell you which part of the city an unclaimed lotto ticket was sold that is just about to expire.
At the end of the day, our results weren't where anyone wanted to be.
And licking their wounds with a big shakeup, a look at the struggling Toronto FC and what the changing face of the club could do to its chances going forward. Good evening, I'm Chris Glover. We'll get to those stories in a moment, but first, I have an update, a positive update for you in the search for a missing 4-year-old girl in Scarborough. Police first alerted the public that the child was missing late this afternoon and said she hadn't been seen for 5 days. Thankfully, just a few hours later, they announced she was found.
She's safe and she's healthy. Yesterday afternoon, police responded to a radio call for a sudden death at the building behind me at 399 Markham Road. When they arrived on scene, they commenced an investigation which subsequently determined that the deceased had a 4-year-old child in his custody. The child was not in the apartment. This was all discovered earlier today.
Okay, so once police discovered that the man had custody of the girl, the missing person alert was released in order to find her. Ultimately, police learned that the man left her with a known caregiver after reportedly not feeling well. An Amber Alert was never issued for the girl, as police never had any indication that she was abducted or that foul play was involved. Now to the top story of the day. Mayor-elect Olivia Chow delivered her first press conference today after winning the by-election last night. Chow says she is ready to get rolling on her priorities, including housing, affordability, and transit. But will those who oppose her stand in her way? Ali Chiasson has more from City Hall.
I'm excited to be able to come here at City Hall, ready for work.
How warm is her welcome? There were councillors like Jamal Myers and Amber Morley who endorsed Olivia Chow, and councillors who joined in the rally against her, like Etobicoke councillor Stephen Holliday, who endorsed anti-Chow candidate Mark Saunders. There were others like Josh Matlow and Brad Bradford who ran against Olivia Chow. Today, she says she will listen to all of them and city staff to get a lay of the land.
I absolutely am looking forward to the opportunity to meet with different councillors, also former candidates. I want us to work together. So one of my first tasks is to listen and to learn, and then look for ways we could work together to achieve our common goals.
Councillor Stephen Holliday cuts to the chase.
The single most important issue is that the city has no money. Our financial pressures are well known, $1.5 billion in a budget hole. I think Mayor Chow will have her work cut out for her, unifying council, cobbling together a coalition to get the many things that she has promised in the campaign done.
She does have strong mayor powers that would allow her to veto some council decisions.
I do not want to violate the principle of democracy, and because that is pretty sacred.
Ultimately, councillors know that in order to get their agendas passed, they need a good working relationship with the mayor.
Councillor Jamal Myers doesn't think she'll need to use the strong mayor powers.
You're never going to have total unity on council, but you never know where your allies are going to come from. You might disagree with someone 90% of the time, but if you can work 10% of the time on one particular issue, you're going to do that.
Some enter the Chow chapter at City Hall with excitement.
It's high time we had a woman as leader of this city. I'm really excited to be working with Olivia Chow. I know I'm going to have to share the bike rack downstairs with the new mayor, and that's great.
Others.
City Councillor, Beaches East York, Ward 19, former mayoral candidate.
With a reinvigorated sense of purpose.
Honestly, I say this with the greatest amount of humility, humbleness. It was the most incredible journey to get to go across the entire city, to hear from tens of thousands of Torontonians about their hopes and aspirations for this city. I have never had more clarity around mission, what I need to be focused on and doing here.
Now that Mayor-elect Olivia Chow has her City Hall security pass in hand, that transition period can really begin, and usually that takes about 4 to 6 weeks to the swearing in, but she's trying to get that done in 2 weeks. Her official swearing-in ceremony is slated to take place July 12th. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
So that is what she's dealing with at City Hall, but Olivia Chow faces what could be a far tougher challenge, winning support for her agenda from Premier Doug Ford. How can Chow work with a premier who campaigned so strongly against her? Our senior reporter at Queen's Park, Mike Crawley, has that part of our coverage tonight.
One of the first congratulatory phone calls to Olivia Chow came from someone who didn't want her to win.
Premier Ford, who graciously called me tonight, and he said, we look forward to working together.
For Doug Ford, that would be quite a change of tone from less than a week ago.
If Olivia Chow gets in, it'll be unmitigated disaster. People are terrified. Businesses are terrified, therefore the workers should be terrified.
Or this from February.
Well, if a lefty mayor gets in there, God help the people of Toronto.
Today, Ford downplays his attacks on Chow as campaign bluster.
During the election, you throw some mud back and forth, but I'll tell you one thing, people expect us to work together, and that's exactly what we're going to do.
Can Conservative Premier Doug Ford really work with a lefty mayor? We asked one.
It's been quite positive, actually, quite positive.
When Andrea Horvath was NDP leader, she sparred with Ford nearly every day.
And you listen to the rhetoric. I just can't believe it.
Now that she's mayor of Hamilton, Horvath says Ford has changed his approach.
Very, magnanimous and open to switching that up.
Chow and Ford were rivals in Toronto's 2014 mayoral election. Nearly a decade later, there are plenty of potential flashpoints between them, including the billion-dollar hole in the city's budget and the future of Ontario Place.
I certainly believe that Ontario Place should be kept public and have a beautiful park where people can come and enjoy the waterfront.
But for now, Chow talks about working well with Ford.
We both agree that we need to build housing, but I'm sure we can find some common ground. Really, at the end of the day, politics is what's possible. How do we do it together?
If Olivia Chow becomes mayor and it was going to work with Doug in a non-ideological fashion, they'll get things done. But I think if they both go in and get into their corners, it's going to be a rough time for Toronto moving forward.
The people have sent a message today. They want to get things done.
Chow's subtle reminder to Ford of his campaign slogan, "Get it done." Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
In many ways, there were two big questions in Toronto heading into this week. Who will be the city's next mayor? We answered that last night. The other, where is the missing $70 million Lotto Max ticket? Time is set to expire tomorrow on claiming that jackpot, and we know that the ticket was purchased in Scarborough. That is where we find our Dale Manukduk tonight. And Dale, about 24 hours left to go here.
That's right, Chris. This yet-to-be-claimed $70 million winning ticket will expire on June 28, 2023, exactly 1 year after the jackpot draw, if someone does not come forward to the OLG before then. If someone doesn't, then that $70 million will go back into the Lotto Max prize pool for future draws.
Boy furniture and accessories for your living room, bedroom, and dining room. And designers who will consult in your...
Best Deals owner Anil Sinwan says the missing ticket is the talk of the town.
Good conversation. I mean, people come and just talk about it. And they say, well, I wish I have it. I wish I have it. No, I'm going to look for it again tonight because it's expiring tomorrow.
The ticket should be validated through OLG's lottery terminal by 10:30 p.m. If not, there are other ways of verifying a lost ticket. OLG has information about it that nobody else has. All they've told the public is that it was sold in Scarborough, where there's over 400 authorized retailers.
You have to tell us exactly where it was sold in Scarborough. And then you have to tell us, what else did you buy with that ticket? Did you buy other products? How much did you spend? Do you play these numbers regularly? Or is this a quick pick?
The OLG says it's not uncommon for winners to wait weeks or even months to claim a winning prize, but usually both the winner and the OLG would know ahead of time that the winning numbers had been checked.
We see when there's activity on the OLG app or on the ticket checker. And in this case, there's been no activity on that ticket. since the day it was sold.
Nearly 900 people have called or contacted OLG about losing the ticket or to just inquire about it. Until it's claimed, people can only dream of what they do with the winnings.
$70 million, I'll give some to my family.
I'll buy a home. It's the first thing, and takes lots of trips. If possible, buy a home here and buy a home where I'm from.
If it remains unclaimed, Sinwan hopes the person is spared future pain.
I wish he don't find it. If he has it, and if he finds it after, his life is going to be hell. I mean, that's like, it's better, he don't find it.
Chris, if the $70 million goes unclaimed, it will be the largest unclaimed lottery jackpot in Canadian history. Right now, the record is a $15 million Lotto Max ticket that was sold in British Columbia 2 years ago. So this would absolutely smash that number. Hopefully, it doesn't come to that, Chris.
And hey, if anybody out there finds that ticket, feel free to reach out to Dale or myself. We will gladly help you out. Right, Dale?
I got ideas.
All right, thanks, buddy. 18 degrees and showers across the city tonight as we look live at our skyline. Colette Kennedy is here with a first look at weather. And Colette, as the rain pushes out, smoke is going to be widespread across our region again.
Thanks, Chris. And we're just seeing changing weather conditions, but it's kind of like we're losing one problem and then another one moves in as the winds shift direction behind our area of low pressure. So as it moves away, it takes those bands of rainfall along with it, intermittent, but still heavy at times. But those winds now pulling in some of the smoke from the forest fires in northern Ontario and parts of Quebec. And so now we have an air quality statement that's in place, and expect that overnight tonight somewhat, but really tomorrow beginning to notice it as we move through the day. So there goes the area of low pressure, taking not only the rain, but that cloud deck with it. So we should be breaking out into bright sunshine. I say should be because also with that smoke there, we get back into seeing those kind of hazy conditions in terms of what we'll be experiencing. So that UV sunshine, even through the haze, even through the smoke, is going to be very high for Toronto, but the air quality goes up into the high range at 7. However, I want to show you Windsor, not only a very high UV index, but high air quality health index tomorrow. So really need to take it easy for anyone who has any kind of respiratory issues, especially for tomorrow, but likely into Thursday as well. 15 tonight, Toronto, 25, but feeling warmer than that tomorrow, Chris.
All right, sounds good. We'll talk to you again a little later on in the show. Thanks, Colette. Taking you now to the St. Lawrence Market area where officers are investigating after an early morning shooting. Police were called to Market Street and the Esplanade at 7:33 this morning for reports of bullets striking a daycare.
Thankfully, nobody was struck as a result of this shooting incident. There was one person working inside the daycare at the time. However, no children were inside the daycare, and there were no parents dropping off children at the time of this incident.
Police say they believe the intended targets of this shooting were a group of people standing in front of the daycare at the time, and they haven't confirmed whether the suspect was in a moving car or a parked car. Anyone with information is urged to contact 51 Division. A police disciplinary hearing has ruled in a case involving 3 Durham officers. The officers responded to a call following the severe beating of a young black man named Devontae Miller. An off-duty Toronto police officer was convicted of assault. The disciplinary hearing ruled the responding Durham officers all acted with a pro-police bias. Lorenda Redekop has that story.
It's more than 6 years since Devontae Miller was beaten so badly he lost an eye. The 3 Durham police officers involved in this case were among those who responded that night. At the time, they knew that another man involved, Michael Theriault, was an off-duty Toronto officer, there with his brother Christian. The brothers told police they'd found Miller breaking into their parents' truck and chased him down. The Durham officers charged Miller, not the brothers. The ruling finds the officers involved accepted the Theriault brothers' account that they demonstrated a pro-police bias. It's a term that appears 56 times in the decision.
It's rare that you'd actually see a case where in which the officers are charged and or convicted
pro-police bias. In fact, I don't know of another case in Canada that's occurred with.
All 3 officers were found guilty of discreditable conduct, one with an additional charge of neglect of duty. The Theriault brothers were only charged months later, after Miller's lawyer got involved. Constable Barbara Zabdir, one of the 3 officers, testified during the brothers' trial, saying when she arrived on the scene, Miller told her they got the wrong guy. She responded sarcastically, "We always do." This ruling by a retired OPP superintendent, finding she didn't even want to hear Miller's side. Zabdir even gave her handcuffs to Michael Theriault to cuff Miller.
What was glaringly obvious was the extent of the injuries with Mr. Devontae Miller and the lack of any injuries on the Theriault brothers. Is extremely disproportionate.
Christian Theriault had called 911, so had Devontae Miller.
Hello?
Hello, 911?
Hi, where do you need the police?
Obviously in distress. A neighbor who saw part of the beating through his window testified he told an officer that just because a guy was breaking into a car doesn't mean they have to kill him. Yet that wasn't followed up on.
I think that the ruling really sends a message that, we expect more from police officers, especially when they're investigating other police officers, that they're held to the same standard when they're investigating you and me as when they're investigating incidents involving off-duty officers or police officers.
Another Durham police officer, now retired, previously pleaded guilty to neglect of duty connected to this case. These 3 officers all remain on active duty. Their penalties are still to be determined. Lorenda Redicop, CBC News, Toronto.
Welcome back. After a disastrous start to the season, today Toronto FC announced major changes to their front office, and Greg Ross has all the details.
These are always difficult circumstances.
Toronto FC president Bill Manning said he never thought it would come to this, but under the circumstances, he felt he had no choice but to fire his head coach, Bob Bradley.
At the end of the day, our results weren't where anyone wanted to be, and then I think including Bob. I apologize to our fans that we are in this moment making a coaching change.
Toronto FC has just 3 wins in 20 games this season and is currently sitting in 14th place in the Eastern Conference, despite having one of the highest payrolls in the league, with high-priced players like Lorenzo Insigne.
That's just not good enough.
Many fans felt this move was a long time in coming.
I think it was a little too late. It should have been done a lot earlier.
Clearly, he's lost the locker room, especially once the reports about how Insigne and Bernadeschi are unhappy here.
These season ticket holders wonder if the moves today go far enough.
I think it was a quick fix, to be honest with you. I think it needs to start from the top with Bill Manning. This is now going to be his 3rd rebuild within his time here, and it hasn't worked the first 2 times.
At this point, let's burn it all down and start again. Let's try to get a good draft pick.
Terry Dunfield will take over the role of head coach on an interim basis.
It's about the group of players downstairs and unlocking personal best and potential, and what's the framework that's going to really fit for these guys.
We have a short list of head coach candidates that we have identified, and we will look to seek permission and start an interview process. Terry will be in that pool.
Manning also promoted Jason Hernandez to general manager, where he will take over many of the responsibilities Bradley was handling as sporting director.
It is a little bit bittersweet in this moment. The idea that I'm here means that, throughout the season, things didn't go as planned.
Dunfield and Hernandez will get their first test in their new roles on Saturday when Toronto FC hosts Real Salt Lake in a Canada Day matchup here at BMO Field. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
The NHL Draft begins tomorrow in Nashville, and for the Toronto Maple Leafs, it's the start of what will seemingly be a busy offseason. The team's new GM spoke to the press today, confirming Sheldon Keefe will remain behind the bench.
I think Sheldon's got a really good relationship with his players. I think, as they say, they all think he's a good coach. I think there's a real strong bond.
The Leafs own the 28th pick in the draft. What to do with that pick is one of the many decisions the GM will need to make. He will also have to work on signing Austin Matthews and William Nylander to contract extensions. Time for a quick break, but stay with us. Colette is back with your extended forecast coming up next. Finally, tonight, over to you, Colette. And Colette, many people will be happy to hear that the rain is set to clear out.
Yes, Chris, that area of low pressure, that upper low that was such a slow mover, finally pushing away from us and taking all of those, changing conditions. Sunshine one moment, heavy rain the next. But the winds coming in from the northwest behind it pulls that smoke back into our skies and even near the surface. So we're seeing that air quality deteriorating like I was showing you earlier in the show. So we do have a statement in place, but at least we get a pattern change. So we have the sun there, if you can see it through some of the haziness. And we'll take a little peek at the holiday weekend here coming up with your 5-day forecast. So just looking at that smoke forecast, already it's been deteriorating into southwestern Ontario. And as we move forward, we're going to see some of this getting quite intense as it moves into the GTA tomorrow. It's there in the morning, but it's just that it gets a little bit worse into the afternoon and evening hours, diffuses a bit, and then into Thursday, we're still looking at pretty widespread smoke over southern Ontario. So I think we may keep that air quality statement. But as the low leaves, it takes not only the rain, but the cloud deck with it. So we should have that sunshine. And again, you can still get that UV coming through the haziness of the smoke. So you still need your sunscreen. You're still going to need your hats and all of that gear. And with the humidity, how about some water around too? Because we still have some humidex values to contend with. Into Thursday, similar situation. We'll see some thunderstorms bubbling up into Michigan. And perhaps Thursday late evening overnight, you get some of those sprinkles, whatever's kind of left over of them, or even a few little downpours coming through the Windsor region. Overnight tonight with those temperatures, a little bit cooler than we've been used to, up to 12 degrees or down to 12 degrees for Windsor. Mid-teens that we're looking at Toronto and through Oshawa, Whitby and Pickering region. And then I said I'd give you a peek into the holiday weekend. So what I want to point out, Friday, Saturday, Canada Day, Sunday, each day a chance of some showers or some thunderstorms. They should be rather widespread in nature and not an all-day event. So there's still going to be plenty of time to enjoy the weekend. Just wanting to be watching carefully when we'll be seeing those, and I'll keep fine-tuning that as the holiday weekend gets closer, Chris.
Oof, hopefully no rain for Canada Day, as it's falling on a Saturday especially. Thank you, Colette. And thank you for watching as well. Maribel Tarouk has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6, and I'll see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Have a great night, everyone.